Hi everyone, this is Dylan again from Dylan's Reptile Time. Hope you're all doing okay. So today we're going to have a look at animal adaptations. Now, an adaptation in an animal is basically a special skill or feature that allows the animal to helps the animal survive in its environment. So it could be physical, like its shape or its color, or it could be behavioral, so the way it behaves in certain situations that helps it survive. So if we look at the giraffe, for example, that's not to scale, but if we look at the giraffe, its main adaptation is its long neck. So it's got this big long neck which helps it eat the leaves from the highest trees there. So that's their main adaptation. So we're going to have a look at the adaptations in reptiles, obviously. So if we have a look at a snake, for example, like Colin the corn snake. So here he is. So reptiles are ectothermic, so also known as cold-blooded, which means they get their energy from the sun. So their temperature is controlled by the environment from the sun. So they sunbathe quite a lot. Warm-blooded animals like us, we have to control our own body temperature. And in order to do that, we have to eat every day, eat quite a lot to create energy to control our temperature. But because reptiles don't have to do that, they can go a long time without eating. So they can go months, if not a whole year, without eating food. So that's a really good adaptation of a reptile. And in the case of the leopard gecko, like Leon here, that can actually store fat in its tail. So when there's not much food around, it can use those fat reserves in its tail to survive a bit longer. Now, a lot of reptiles, like the bearded dragon and other lizards, so they can flatten their bodies out really wide to try and get as much light and heat into their bodies as possible. They can also change colour as well, so if it's not that nice a day, they can go quite dark in colour to try and get as much heat and light into their body as they can. And tortoises, well, they have got really powerful legs and arms which allow them to dig holes which they can go into in the middle of the day when it's really hot. So they can go into those holes to cool off. And snakes, because of their long, thin bodies, they can go into like tunnels like rabbit holes and other animals' holes just to cool off during the day. Now, another main adaptation in reptiles is their scales. Now, the scales help hold water inside their body, so retain water. So reptiles like snakes, lizards, tortoises, they can survive in a lot drier and harsher conditions than a lot of other animals because of the ability to hold that water inside their body. And their scales can also protect them. So it's like a big suit of armor. And tortoises, well, they've got a step further with their scales. So their scales, they've got these really hard scales called scutes, and they form this big shell on their back, which they can actually hide their arms, legs and head inside their body, inside that shell, to protect themselves from predators. So that's a really good adaptation for the tortoise. And they don't rely on their parents, like reptiles don't rely on their parents to provide food and things. So a lot of animals, when they're born, they have to rely on their parents to feed them, like us. So they stay with their parents for quite a while until they're ready to go off. Reptiles, when they're born, they're ready to just go off and start eating, catching things and surviving on their own. So that's a really good adaptation. And another one is camouflage. So in the case of leopard geckos here, they've got really good camouflage. So that colour and those spots look exactly like the ground where they're from, and it makes it harder for them to be spotted by birds and other predators that might want to eat them. And that's what you usually find in a lot of reptiles. So in the jungle, in the trees, a lot of reptiles are green, like the leaves. In the deserts, for example, they're sandy coloured. So it all makes them harder to be spotted by predators that might want to eat them. It's also really good for disguise as well, so they can just ambush their prey and just jump out at them. Now, if we look at the snake again, a snake's shape is really good because it allows them to slither through the ground. They've got no legs and arms, so they can just slither undetected through the ground looking for their prey. And they've got these special tongues, these forked tongues that they can taste the air with. And it means they can just track their prey in the dark. So they don't have to rely on the light in order to see their prey. They could just track it with this really special tongue. And they're expert climbers as well. You wouldn't think it, having no legs and arms, but they can climb trees. A lot of lizards obviously climb trees, so they can reach their prey a lot higher up in the trees there. And they've got these really flexible jaws, so they can stretch their mouths open really wide, practically dislocate their jaw, and it allows them to eat things a lot bigger than their head. And snakes' teeth as well, if you look at their teeth, they're all kind of curved inwards. So it allows them to grab their prey, and then it's very hard for the animal to escape their jaws, and then they can just swallow it down. And a lot of snakes obviously have venom. So when they catch their prey, when they bite their prey, they can just let the animal run off, and then they just track it down to where the animal ends up, and then again just swallow it whole. And another way most snakes eat their food is by constriction. Like the boa constrictor here is probably the most famous of constrictors, hence the name. So what they do with their long body and their really powerful muscles, they catch their prey, they wrap their body around the animal really tightly, squeeze all the air out, and then swallow it whole. Now a lot of snakes do that, but the constrictors, boas and pythons are the most famous ones, I guess. And the boa's size, that's another adaptation. So with them being so big, it means they've got less predators than a lot of other smaller snakes. And it also, their size allows them to catch a lot larger prey as well. And if you have a look at the blue-tongued skink, well, they have really powerful jaws that allow them to grab onto their prey. And in the case of their favourite food is snails, so it allows them to crush their prey with these big, powerful jaws. And obviously crocodiles and alligators would have that same effect as well. Now there's another lizard called a chameleon that's got a whole host of adaptations. So a chameleon's feet, for example, you've got two toes on that side, 3 on that side, allows it to grab onto branches. Their tail is prehensile, which means they can use it like a hand to grip onto things. Their tongue is nearly as long as their body, and they can shoot that out and catch insects. And of course, obviously, they can change colour. So it adds to their camouflage, but they also change colour depending on what mood they're in. So if they're really grumpy and they want to, you know, rival another male, they go really dark in colour. And if they want to attract a female, try and get a girlfriend, they go really bright colours, like nice greens and reds, really brightly coloured. And a lot of reptiles, they have different defence mechanisms, different kind of adaptations like that to stop themselves, try and stop themselves from getting attacked and eaten. So in the blue-tongued skink, for example, his tongue, got this big blue tongue, which when they feel threatened, they could puff themselves up and they stick their tongue out like, and it usually does enough to scare off whoever wants to eat it. And some lizards, not this skink, but some lizards can actually lose their tail. So if they're in danger, they can lose their tail. The tail wriggles around on the floor on its own like this. The thing that wants to eat them grabs the tail while the lizard runs off and escapes. And then they can actually grow a new one back. And some other reptiles, they do what's called artificial kind of bigness. So yeah, they make themselves look bigger than what they are. So in the case of the bearded dragon here, Sparky, he can puff his throat out really big, and it usually does enough to scare off whoever wants to eat it. Makes them look quite menacing. And cobras can do that as well. They kind of hood themselves up, make themselves look really big and threatening like that. And the hognose snake, well, they can do that as well. So they puff themselves up quite a lot, and they hiss as well, make themselves look really threatening, bigger than what they are. They can also play dead as well. So when they feel threatened, they can flip themselves upside down, look like they're dead, stick their tongue out, like, and then they produce a really foul smelling odour. So it puts the animal off from eating it. And some snakes as well, and other reptiles, they have what's called warning colours. So the coral snake is a really venomous snake. It's got these bright colours so that other animals leave it alone because it's venomous. But what the coral snake, what the milk snake here does, it pretends to be a coral snake with these bright colours, looks like a coral snake, so that other animals leave it alone because they think it's venomous. So it mimics the coral snake. And a lot of reptiles do that as well. They kind of mimic other deadlier animals so that it gives them a better chance to survive. And there's also the ball python. So as the name suggests, they can curl up into a really tight ball like a football to protect themselves. They just hide their head. So that's one of their main adaptations they use to defend themselves and protect themselves from predators. Right, so that's, I hope you enjoyed that. We got to see a lot of reptile adaptations in snakes, lizards, tortoises. Why not, after this, you could pick an animal yourself and just list off a couple of their adaptations. Might be fun. You never know. Right, so we'll see you again soon. Bye.